Hello, students. Today, we're going to talk about a really important concept in our democracy, decentralization. We'll be looking at how power isn't just kept in faraway capital cities, but how it's brought right down to your own villages and towns.
So let's start with a simple question. Just think about it. The road right outside your house, or the water supply in your neighborhood, or even the local school. Why should the decisions about these things be made by someone sitting hundreds of kilometers away in a state capital or even in Delhi? It just makes more sense for local people to make local decisions, doesn't it? This is the main idea we're going to explore today.
So what is the solution then? Well, it's a process called decentralization. As you can see, it's when power is taken away from the central and state governments and it's given to the local government. Let me repeat that because this is the key definition. Power is taken from the central and state governments and given to the local level.
Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit more. Why is this transfer of power so important? What's the basic idea behind it all?
You see, the basic idea is actually quite simple and very logical. A lot of problems and issues are best solved right where they begin, at the local level. I mean, who knows a village or a town better than the people who live there? You have the best knowledge of your own area. You know exactly which road needs repair or where a new hand pump should be installed. You also have better ideas on how to spend money and manage things well. And, maybe most importantly, it allows everyday people to directly take part in making the decisions that affect their own lives. This is the real spirit of democracy, the ideal of local self-government.
Now, while this idea sounds great, for many years in India, it wasn't very effective. We had local governments, sure, but they weren't really very powerful. That all changed with a huge step that was taken in our constitution.
If you look at the situation before 1992, you'll see that local bodies, like panchayats and municipalities existed, but they were pretty much completely controlled by the state governments. Elections, well, they weren't held regularly. And the biggest problem was that these local governments had no real power or money of their own. So in practice, there was very little actual decentralization happening.
But then came the year 1992. This year was a real turning point. The Constitution of India itself was changed to make this third level of democracy, our local governments, much more powerful and much more effective.
Now this slide is really important, especially for your exams. So let's go through these changes carefully. First, it was made compulsory to hold regular elections for local bodies. Second, seats were reserved for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes to ensure they had representation. Third, and this was a huge step, at least 1/3 of all positions were reserved for women. Fourth, independent state election commissions were set up in each state to conduct these elections. And finally, state governments were now required by law to share some of their powers and their money with the local government bodies.
So, what does this new system actually look like in practice? Let's begin with the rural areas. The system of local government in our villages is popularly known as Panchayati Raj. The Panchayati Raj has a three-tier or a three-level structure. Right at the bottom, at the village level, we have the Gram Panchayat. In the middle, at the block level, a few Gram Panchayats are grouped together to form what is called a Panchayat Samiti. And then, at the very top, at the district level, all the Panchayat Samitis in that district come together to form the Zilla Parishad.
Let's focus on the foundation, the village level. So every village, or a group of villages, has a Gram Panchayat. This is like a village council. It has a president, who we call the Sarpanch, and several elected members, called the Panch. Now, who keeps an eye on them? They work under the supervision of the Gram Sabha. And the Gram Sabha isn't an elected body. Instead, it's made up of all the adult voters living in that village. It's their job to meet at least twice or thrice a year to approve the budget and to review the work of the Gram Panchayat. It's a fantastic example of direct democracy.
Okay, so that covers the rural side. A very similar structure is also in place for our urban areas, for all our towns and cities. Let's have a quick look at that. For urban areas, we have municipalities set up in the smaller towns. The political head of the municipality is the municipal chairperson. And in the really big cities, we have what are called municipal corporations. The head of a municipal corporation is an officer known as the mayor. And just like in the villages, both of these are run by elected representatives of the people.
So, after these big changes in 1992, how has this entire experiment in local democracy actually worked out? Let's look at a balanced report card, looking at both the successes and the challenges that are still there.
You know, one of the biggest achievements is just the massive scale of it all. There are now about 36 lakh, that's 3.6 million elected representatives in panchayats and municipalities all over the country. Just to give you an idea, that number is bigger than the population of many countries in the world. It's the largest experiment in democracy anywhere on the planet.
And this really shows the reality of decentralization in India. Giving constitutional status to local government has definitely helped to deepen democracy in our country. It has also increased the voice and representation of women in our democracy, which is a wonderful thing. But at the same time, we can see that there are still many difficulties, many struggles that these local governments face.
So the important thing to remember is that while we've made a lot of progress, some big challenges are still there. For example, Gram Sabha meetings are not held regularly in many places. Many state governments have still not transferred any significant powers to the local governments. And very often, these local bodies simply don't have enough money to do their work properly. We are still a long way from achieving the true ideal of self-government.
Okay, as we come towards the end of our discussion, let's quickly clear up a common doubt that many students have. Then we'll recap the main points, and I'll leave you with a very important tip for your exams. Here's a question I get asked a lot. If the Zilla Parishad chairperson is the political head of the district, then why does it seem like the district magistrate, or the collector, is the one who's actually running the district? It's a very good question, and it can be a little confusing.
Well, the answer is that they have two very distinct and different roles. The Zilla Parishad chairperson is the political head. They are elected by the people, and their job is to set the policies and the vision for the district's local government. The district collector, or the DM, on the other hand, is the administrative head. They are a government officer appointed by the state whose job is to carry out those policies and manage the day-to-day work of the administration. So one is the political leader, and the other is the administrative officer. Both are very important, but their jobs are separate.
So let's do a quick recap of what we've learned today. First, decentralization means moving power from the central and state governments down to local governments. Second, the 1992 constitutional amendments were the game changer that made local government strong. Third, we learned about the three-tier Panchayati Raj system for rural areas and the municipalities and corporations for urban areas. And finally, we saw that while decentralization has deepened our democracy, there are still challenges, especially with getting enough power and money.
And now for that very important exam tip. Please remember this. If you get any question in your exam about decentralization or local self-government, you must mention the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments of 1992. This is the most important fact on this topic, and mentioning it will show that you really understand the subject. I hope this has helped you get a much clearer picture of decentralization in India. Thank you for listening.